Hi, my name is Alexandru Tatarchuk, and this is my video presentation for the semester project. Our cloud provider of choice was Microsoft Azure because we were already familiar with it, and besides that, it has a lot of different functionalities and it is just a well integrated ecosystem. For example, we used Azure repos, our repository is hosted in repos, and we had our pull requests set up with different kind of policies. We had mandatory requirements and optional ones. For example, it was a mandatory requirement that we have at least one approver per pull request. This ensures that people get familiar with the newest code changes, and it is a great place where developers can leave suggestions or even questions to why certain changes were made. This also ensures that there aren't any silly mistakes that can get into main. An optional a requirement for a pull request is, for example, linking it to a work item. Our work items are included in Azure boards. We have a Kanban board where we manage our process. The boards, we have different columns, a new item column, to-do column, and done column, and you can link a PBI to a branch or a pull request. Therefore, you have a nice overview which PBI is linked to what and what developer is working with on which PBI. Besides that, dashboards also integrate a lot of stuff together. You can get a nice overview of open bugs, stuck PBIs, and even how your CI/CD works and failed runs of different pipelines. Speaking of pipelines, we have two pipelines, continuous integration and continuous deployment. Continuous integration is part of the pull request. So CI must run successfully in order for a pull request to go through. Continuous integration installs .NET and runs necessary tests and obviously builds the project. So we ensure that the newest code changes didn't affect our tests and they successfully run. Continuous deployment runs after continuous integration, after the pull request went through, and it basically does the same stuff, installs .NET, installs Cosmos Emulator to run the database tests, restores new Git dependencies, and obviously builds the project. And most importantly, at the end, it publishes an artifact, which is then used to release a new version of application, for example, in Azure pipelines. My only issue with pipelines is their language of choice, YAML. I think it is quite an error-prone language because it is both case-sensitive and space-sensitive, and I had a lot of issues with that. But luckily, there's variables and tasks feature on Azure pipelines that auto-generates you some YAML code, so it makes it a bit less error-prone. But I think pipelines is one of the difficult challenges for developers that get into cloud, because this is a whole different mentality of automating some processes that used to be manual for a lot of years, because all this continuous integration and deployment were just manual steps that a developer must have done in order to release a new product. Besides that, we have different kinds of resources. We have our resources hosted on Azure Cloud. For example, our web API, our application built on Blazor, and also the Cosmos DB. Cosmos DB is a serverless technology where basically it is not continuously running. It is not a database that continuously runs, but in fact, it is when there's a request to retrieve information or store information, it is then computed. This also results it is a big benefit, don't get me wrong, because it is also sustainable and you don't get charged for computational time that you weren't using. But it has a drawback, for example, to if it wasn't used for quite some time and it is set on a cold tier, not a hot tier, then it takes some time for it to actually run and start again. Another serverless technologies that we didn't get to use, but I personally used in the hobby project is Azure Function. It is just a glorified method that is being invoked on either an HTTP request or a timer trigger. One issue that I personally have with cloud is actually managing different service plans, and pricing in general in the cloud is a big topic. For example, it is very confusing to me, different subscriptions that you can have different subscriptions, and then you have resources using different kinds of plans in these subscriptions, and there are different kinds of service plans. You are being charged on demand, you are being charged for computational time, sometimes you are being charged not for computational time but as a subscription per month, day, and so on. And I think it's another different big topic in cloud is actually being smart about managing your plans, because it is quite easy for us because we're using the free plan and you have quotas, so you basically cannot run into the issue of consuming more than you actually allow or can afford, because by using quotas your application are just completely stopped. But for a big company, I think this is quite an issue, and I think the best thing to manage that is to have multiple subscriptions, and your every resource is a different subscription. Therefore, you can have a nice overview on what you are spending and how much you are spending. Yeah, cloud. But my personal my personal contributions to the project were mainly in front end, and I'm quite glad with how the project ended. We have a lot of different features, and I think we focused on the right things. We focused on avoiding duplicated code, ensuring we have the best code quality possible, no code smells, and we ensured as much as possible to follow the solid principles. I talked a lot about what we have good in our project in the project report, but I actually want to focus on the things that I didn't mention and some of the bad stuff that wasn't mentioned in our report because we were obviously running out of space. For example, we cannot have multiple level of replies in our discussion in movies or in TV shows. This is because of some weird Blazor issue that we didn't have enough time to look into. It was some issue with the rendering because you had some recursive components, a comment inside of a comment inside of a comment, and because of that, Blazor just got overwhelmed and it was re-rendering components when they were not supposed to be re-rendered. Besides that, we overlooked one of the requirements stated in the project. It is a requirement in the parentheses to include for an average rating for a movie, to include a number of voters. This was just a silly mistake that was overlooked, and I can defend myself because this can easily be implemented with just a few lines of code in the rating handler. We don't have to create a new endpoint for this just because we are using OData. We already get the average, so one thing that must be added to the rating handler is just save the total number as a new field response that we get. from calling the rating endpoint. Yeah, one big success that I didn't get to mention in the project report is that learning and reading a lot of TMDB API documentation resulted into huge improvements. For example, if you want to get details about a movie, then you have movie details. But if you want to have the credits, which is the cast and crew, you have to call another endpoint. If you want to get similar movies if you want to get similar movies to a different movie, you have to call another endpoint. If you want to get recommended movies, same story, you have to call another endpoint. Just because I read a lot about their API, I found out about a utility, which is basically a query in your request. It is called append to response, which allows us to append multiple responses to one HTTP request. And this is a huge improvement because we don't have to wait. We have to do only one HTTP response instead of four, and I think this is a big success for us. Um, and yeah, I was quite happy with the results of the project. Unfortunately, I didn't get to learn that much about cloud, and I don't want to brag about it, but I think it just comes a bit later than I expected because I learned about cloud and used all those technologies during my internship. So now I just use them. I didn't learn anything new. So it might be an idea to move cloud a bit earlier. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching this video. Bye.